Here we are going to set vapor probes into our boring. Now before you set any probes, you want to take a piece of tubing and mark it at the increments at which you will be setting your vapor probes. In this case, we are marking it at 5 and 10 feet. Cut that piece of tubing about a foot longer than your deepest mark and set that aside. We'll be using that later. Now we are going to set our first vapor probe. You're going to take a polyethylene vapor probe and place it on the end of the tubing. The vapor probe looks something like this. It's a polyethylene cylinder with a little nub sticking out. Place that nub into the end of the tubing, and there you have it. Now we are ready to set our first vapor probe. Take the tubing and feed it into the boring. While you are feeding the probe down, make sure you wiggle and twist the tubing to ensure that the probe is reaching the full depth of the boring and not just getting hung up on an edge. Once you've ensured that the probe is at the base of the boring, you'll cut the tubing, not too short, but about 12 inches above the surface to ensure that you have enough length to complete the sampling. Once it's cut, you will grab a valve, either the two-way or the more common three-way shutoff valve, and you will place that at the end of the tubing and shut the valve to the off position. Once we have that set, we are going to grab that pre-cut piece of tubing that we had marked earlier, and we will feed that into the boring. Again, wiggle it and make sure it's not getting hung up on an edge and it is actually hitting the bottom of the boring. Once you've ensured the tubing has reached the bottom of the boring, you will pour a little bit of sand in and use the tubing to ensure that the sand is not only reaching bottom, but you will be able to tell exactly how much sand is there. You want to aim for about 6 inches of sand above the vapor probe. If you need a little bit more, pour a little more, but do a little at a time to get an accurate depth. Once you have about 6 inches of sand above the probe, you are going to start pouring your bentonite granules. Now pour the bentonite in the same fashion that you did the sand, and this time you want about 12 inches of bentonite above the sand pack. Use the tubing to ensure you're getting the proper depth. Once you've hit about 12 inches, take your sprayer and you're going to hydrate the bentonite with water. I like to spray it into the tubing at least for the first round, just to ensure that the water is reaching the bentonite and not simply spraying the sides of the boring. Once you do that, you'll repeat the process. Pour a little bit of bentonite, feed it down with the tubing, making sure that the bentonite is reaching the full depth of the tubing and hitting bottom. Spray your water, little bit of bentonite, work it down, spray your water, little bit of bentonite, work it down, spray your water. You get the process. Basically, what you're trying to build is this. You can see each probe is placed in about a 6 to 12 inch sand pack. It is followed by about 12 inches of dry granular bentonite above that, and the remaining space between each sand pack is filled with hydrated bentonite. This is what you're attempting to build inside the boring. You will repeat this process for each probe that you are setting in the boring. Once you have your two probes set at their designated depths, fill the remainder of the boring with bentonite and hydrate all the way up to the surface.